Well, I am so thrilled to be able to virtually have a visit on the other side of the world with my friend Brandon Wilson, who I haven't seen in 10 years. Aloha, Brandon. How are you?
Aloha, Cindy, from the base of Mont Blanc in the Alps.
That picture you have behind you is the view you see out your window. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's Mont Blanc, which is about 15,700 feet.
How absolutely stunning. How absolutely stunning. I have to say, I love some of the views from Maui, but I think you've got us beat on that one. I really do. I think you've got us beat. That is, I mean, that is so inspirational. There's a lot of magic and mystery and fascinating stories with the Dolomites and that area. And we're going to tie this in with what I am doing, also the peace projects, because you have a lot of wonderful background with that as well. Let me just do a brief introduction to you. When you go to Brandon Wilson, if you see a sports star come up on the bio, you've got the wrong Brandon Wilson. You want the Brandon Wilson, who's a Lowell Thomas Gold Award-winning author, photographer, and explorer, and a wonderful kind of gnome-like peace pilgrim, long-distance trekker. And you, I just love, you love that you travel 100 countries, including the African transect, London to Cape Town. And you are really also a man who has been doing some fantastic pilgrimages, which I want to talk to you about. And some of them are pilgrimages some people don't know about. Some are the Templar Trail we know about, which is wonderful. But you've also were the first American to traverse the 1,850 kilometer Via Francigena, Francigena from Canterbury, England to Rome. And you hiked and founded the 4,500 kilometer Templar Trail, recreating the route the First Crusaders took on the path of peace from France to Jerusalem. And you and your wife trekked Via Alpina along the backbone of the Alps across 8 countries. And you have done a lot of this and turn them into beautiful, amazing books that are, I find them just fascinating. I think I've read all of your books. I'm not 100% sure, but when you lived here, I know you gave me some, and here I'm showing some of the screen here. I know I read Along the Templar Trail, which was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Over the Top and Back Again, I've read. Also, Dead Man Don't Leave Tips. I loved your humor in that one. That was fascinating. Also, Yak Butter Blues. I love that. I don't know if I read this one, and I can't even pronounce it, so I doubt I have. Off Dem Temperweg.
That's a German translation of Along the Templar Trail.
And this one here says The Walkabout Chronicles. That one I haven't
Walkabout
read.
Chronicles it's a recent anthology put out. It's a collection of like 30 different authors who have walked in different places for different reasons, cultural reasons, artistic reasons, spiritual reasons, and they've all come together. And between that book and the other book following that as an anthology as well, and it's a compilation of all these. So people
Yeah,
have
I
many
have to
different
get that
motivations.
one for sure. That's a must-have then for my collection.
Yeah,
And
yeah. The next one is just solely pilgrimages.
oh wow, well, and you have a couple of titles I don't even know how to pronounce, let alone what they mean. What's a chevalier? Is that how do you pronounce that? And what is that?
I was inducted into the Knights Hospitaller, which is an ancient order dating back probably 1,000 years. I was inducted in that in Sweden a couple of years ago.
I had
So
not heard about
I
that.
was knighted.
So is your title any different? Is it just regular, just use chevalier?
Yeah, it's chevalier, which is French for knight.
But you're not a sir.
You have to be knighted by the queen to be a sir. So
And you, of course, have received many other awards and been recognized. And it's so interesting, in your travels of where you've lived, that's been just a story unto itself as well. And it's interesting when you left Hawaii, the big island, to move. I think did you move first? And you've traveled the world, so you know what places you're interested in. But you landed up where you are right now, and you've been there for how long?
We've been here 4 years, and we were introduced to Chamonix and the area. Chamonix is it's a major resort in Europe. Mont Blanc is Europe's highest mountain. So we're here, and it's a touristic area, but it's also fascinating because it's at the corner of three different countries where France, Switzerland, and Italy all come together. So in 30 minutes, either direction, I can be in another country. And we came through this area after leaving Maui. We went on the Via Alpina, which was a 1,200-mile hike across the backbone of the Alps. It took us 4 months. We climbed a mountain every day. And of course, as we're doing this, we're thinking, oh my gosh, where are we going to end up afterwards? Because when we left Maui, we sold everything. We sold our car, our furniture, moved out of our place, and quit our jobs, and basically said, okay, we're setting off.
And you did. You set sail.
And we set sail, and Chamonix was one of the areas that we came through. After that, we ended up settling in Italy for 4 years, up in the Dolomites, and came back to Hawaii after 4 years, spent some time in Volcano, which was a nice transition. And then 4 years ago now, we decided to come back to Europe, and we moved to Chamonix.
Now, in Chamonix, is that very far from the Dolomites? It is probably then. I thought you were still living in the Dolomites.
No, it's in the Alps, and Chamonix is probably 4 to 5 hours away from the Dolomites.
Down. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, we're west.
So are you in a little more populated place than you were when you were in the Dolomites?
No, not really. Not really. We're south of Geneva, which is certainly a big enough town, but we're about an hour and 15 minutes from Geneva.
So when you're in this interesting position close to these different countries with the different rules going on with COVID, how are you restricted from traveling or hiking even with the situation being in flux with every country kind of having different rules and regulations?
Oh my gosh, it's been going on for a year here, Cindy. At first, it was like a total shutdown, where you were only allowed out of your house for an hour a day. You had to have a permission slip. You could only go out for personal exercise or to walk the dog, or to go to the grocery. Everything else was pretty much closed. The ski slopes have been closed all season here. Most businesses have been closed. Restaurants, bars, swimming pools, rec centers, gyms, spas, all closed. Still people come and they walk around, and you can get takeaway food. But as far as gathering, you can't do that right now. We were at complete shutdown for a few months. They opened up during the summer, and I think they learned to regret that because the COVID numbers spiked then after the summer. And then since then, we've been on a partial shutdown with a curfew from 6 at night to 6 in the morning.
So what does that do with your trekking and hiking plans?
Well, for me, I was planning on hiking across Ireland on a pilgrimage route, the length of Ireland last summer, and I had to cancel that. The Tour de Mont Blanc, which is right out my door, I had walked that 2 years ago, and it was closed. The TMB, UTMB, which is a major cross-country race, foot race, with people coming from all over the world, that didn't happen last summer. So it's, and I don't know, it's yet to be discovered whether it's going to happen again or how soon everything is going to open up, because every country seems to have their own regulations, like you said. and nobody knows what's going to happen. A lot of it comes down to getting the vaccine out.
Exactly,
And
same here. And we're kind of slow with that in Hawaii. We were slow to get it, and then when we got it, now we're slow to get the vaccines as well. And some, but that's still only people 75 and older can get the vaccines, they're first responders. And yeah, it's been interesting. I just did a show with Mike O'Dwyer from Mulligan's about Ireland because his father passed away. And I was talking about what do you do, when you want to go to a funeral for your father in Ireland. He couldn't go, but then again, it's like what you're doing is streaming, but he says it's very, very bad in Ireland right now. And I think he said they had 64 deaths just this last month. But it's still not a good time to go to Ireland, that's for sure. Because I wanted to go to Ireland. I love Ireland. And I was thinking about wanting to go in September. I'm saying, well, gosh, I haven't traveled in a year, and that's a long time for me. Stuck. Did I almost say stuck on Maui? I almost said stuck on Maui.
there are worse places to be stuck, believe me.
Here, it's not really stuck. But when you're on an island and you're traveling, it feels like you can't get out. So I was going to go to Ireland in September, and he said, no, I don't think that it's going to be good by then. He says, you might wait to October. He says, but I'd say it's going to be safe by December. So who knows? We're the whole world doesn't know. We're all up in the air. You almost literally there. But how many feet are? What's your altitude there?
My altitude here, I think, is about 12,000 feet.
Wow. Oh my gosh, Brandon. That's amazing to live at 12. That's 2,000 feet higher than Haleakala, our highest mountain volcano here. So I guess you've adjusted, but that's very high altitude to live at.
Oh, it is. It makes workout a little bit more of a challenge, but it's nice in some ways. On a beautiful day, it's incredible. The views are exceptional, and you can see from my background here what the mountains are like, and it's awe-inspiring.
So you have a heavy snow? Is it a very thick winter right now?
Right now, we've had a warm snap, and the föhn, which is the warm wind, has come up from the Sahara and from also Italy. It's come in, and a lot of the snow is melted. We had a huge amount of snow up until about 3 weeks ago, and it's been in the 20s for about a month. But today it was 40, and it looks like we're going to be 40s and 50s for the next week.
Wow, very interesting. So you're a trekker, and you have to stay in shape for that. At this point, do you have places around you where, and you have to, why don't you spell out where you live so I get an idea how to pronounce it correctly?
Chamonix,
Chamonix. Chamonix.
Chamonix. Yeah.
Oh, Chamonix. Okay, Chamonix is good. So are there areas where you can at least do treks, if you want to walk for 3 or 4 hours in a day or something, can you do that where you are now?
You can, as long as you socially distance. But up until recently, the snow has been so deep, you'd have to have snowshoes or skis.
Oh, so now you
And
could.
yeah, we're not really skiers, which is a shame because this is such a great ski resort. But as far as hiking, that's mainly why we chose Chamonix.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
in fact, when we first came here, we had the French bureaucracy is something to deal with, and we had a hard time finding a place to rent because you have to have proof of employment and so on and so on. Well, if you don't have a regular 9-to-5 job, then that can be tricky. So we ended up, we found a place via Airbnb that they rented long-term for us, and it was a 13th century castle.
Oh my gosh.
So we spent our first year and a half living in part of the castle.
Amazing.
The
Wow.
walls were about a yard thick and tiny little windows. So it was a rather dark, and it was a good experience. But wow, we were really just steeped in the local culture.
So now have you been able to get, like, I mean, do you but green card, or how do you do that? Do you have dual citizenships, or how do you handle it?
We have renewable visas that we renew every year. And then it's a matter of filling out the paperwork, going into what's essentially the county here with all of our paperwork showing that we're responsible and we have leases and we have income. And so we renew it for another year.
Well,
But
you know, there's
just,
many people who might love to do that. I have to say, you know, I mean, I've thought about sometimes doing that, and I thought it'd be impossible. But it's great that you, I guess, once you figure it out and get past the first hurdle, the second and third year probably isn't as difficult, correct?
no, it's the first year. It's the first year because if you can imagine everything you've done as an adult since you were 16, having to redo all of that all within a year or less, you know, getting a driver's license and setting up a bank account and getting insurance and getting health insurance and signing up for this and that. And, you know, it's all that stuff kind of crammed in. So our first year, a good bit of it was really taking care of that sort of bureaucracy.
And
But
it would
after
have been,
that, it got better.
it would almost be impossible if you tried to do it a year ago with everything closed and the thing shut down. So it's good you were able to do it when you did. Um, Because I can't imagine trying to do all of that with some of the restrictions that were happening in this last year.
And plus, in the past year, you've got everybody getting ready for Brexit. So all the British who are living in France, which is a lot of people, are all going through this for the first time because they're no longer EU members. So they have to now apply for visas like we do.
Oh, what a bureaucratic nightmare. Well, I want to talk about some of your peace pilgrimages because I've talked about on the peace project shows I do sometimes peace treks and peace pilgrimages. And everyone has different ways of thinking of their pilgrimages. Some just going to what they think is a sacred site. I know I interviewed a woman who has done over a course of years in Japan, trekking around a sacred island. But you've done some very interesting peace pilgrimages. And I guess the first question about that I would have is what was the initial intent and what you were trying to accomplish when you thought of trying to do a peace pilgrimage?
As you mentioned initially, Cindy, I think we had a bucket list that we were working off of back as far as 1985, and we take off with backpacks and stay in youth hostels and travel as cheaply as we could. We spent a year doing a round the world sort of tour on our own, totally independent, and just kind of at a whim saying, okay, we've got tickets from here to here to here to here, and booking a whole year in advance on a round the world fair and getting a lot of that stuff out of the way. And it was really exciting, but we were looking for something more meaningful and something I think that appealed in a spiritual sense, as well as satisfied our curiosity. And it all kind of came to fruition one day. We heard about this trail in Tibet that went from Lhasa to Kathmandu. And since the Chinese invasion, the trail had been closed. And we decided we were going to try to walk it again to prove to them that people should and could walk this without interrupting any sort of geopolitics. And so through a long process, we applied, we were approved at the last minute, we were given 40 days, and we did a 1,200 kilometer walk from Lhasa to Kathmandu. And I came back and I wrote the book, Yak Butter Blues, about what we saw and the transition and what is happening with the Tibetan people and how they're living today. And so that kind of led, that was so satisfying to us to have an additional meaning to what we were doing. And at the end of it, I had a chance to present these prayer flags that I brought all the way from Lhasa to the King of Nepal. And so I kept my mind open to possibilities, what might happen in the future. And we heard about the Camino de Santiago, which is a really famous trail. Well, this was 1999, And it wasn't quite so famous then. It just reopened maybe 10 years before that. So in 99, I did that. And then every year after that, I did another sort of European pilgrimage trail. One year it was the Via Francigena. And the Via Francigena goes from Canterbury, England to Rome. And it was too long to do in one bite because I couldn't get away from work for that long. So I did it 2 different years. And that was a really satisfying experience, but totally different because I was walking by myself the whole time. And so that was 2 months on the trail. And then I heard about one in Norway. These things just sort of started coming to me. People would almost seek me out with these ideas. And so one year I walked across Norway on the St. Olav's Trail. Another year I went back to Spain and did 3 other trails in Spain, which were also pilgrimage routes. And then out of the blue, I had a call from a guy that I met in Spain back in '99. I heard from him about 7 years later, and he said, I want to walk to Jerusalem. Would you consider going with me? And it took me about 5 minutes to say, yeah, I think I'd love to do that. And we took off in April, and it was a 6-month trek recreating the route of the First Crusades. And my idea was all along to do this trail, to open it up to people who are looking at a way to get to Jerusalem. Because out of this group of hardcore pilgrim types, they've been on the Camino, they've been to Via Francigena, and now they want to go to Jerusalem. So I wanted to create a trail so that they could do this peace walk on their own. And I did that, wrote the book about it along the Templar Trail. Gosh, since then, it seems like I've done several others, but it's always sort of perpetuated. Now I've done these walks for more than 20 years.
Well, what's so interesting and why I recommend people get your books is that we find in life, and especially on the path of life, and especially a spiritual path, that you have an idea. Sometimes it seems like it's divinely guided. Sometimes it's someone who acts as that messenger that brings you an idea. And you make your plans, but then when you're actually activating those plans and doing these things that are guided and that you have as an inspiration, so much happens that you could never, ever have imagined, even with experience that happens along the trails of life and the path of life. And you bring them up beautifully in your books. I find this because I'm doing a project right now, and every project I have, whether it's a book or a CD, when you collaborate and do things, things come up, an idea is great, and you have this enthusiasm and energy, but then you get into going, gosh, I never thought it would. I guess you have that quite a bit that happens in your books. You express that quite beautifully.
There is definitely a serendipity, and you can start with the idea. It never turns out exactly as you planned, but that's the beauty of it. As the whole thing unwinds, you meet people that you never expected to meet, and people open their hearts, they open their homes, they want to participate in some sort of way, even though they can't walk with you. They may give you a meal, they may show you the way, they may take you to the trailhead, they may buy your book afterwards. But it's all, gosh, it's all part of joining in the experience. And that's what I try to convey in the books, that it's not all, this is beautiful, this is an easy day, this is a wonderful meal, because there's a lot of hard times and a lot of tough things that happen too, and challenges, personal challenges to overcome. And I try to include those in my books.
And I think that's probably in life, the lessons. And this last year, I think we never could have imagined how many lessons we would have to learn, or imagine what would have been happening in this last year. But I have to keep reminding myself that it's through these lessons of things we hadn't planned, that sometimes we learn the most, and especially if we have an intent towards being at peace. and it's like, well, okay, how would I negotiate this, or how would I live this from that point of peace, even if it's a hard lesson or challenging, right? I mean, do you have some kind of standard you've got, your fallback thing when you encounter things you never thought would happen and you have to deal with them?
I think to have patience and to ask for help. I think the universe is really very giving, and all you have to do is put it out there, and it's amazing the experiences. And I talk about it along the Templar Trail. Some of those hardest times. I mean, war broke out when we were walking. We didn't know if we would be able to continue. I was walking with a man who was partially deaf and had diabetes, and those were physical challenges he had to overcome. But we made it. There were ways around it, and I never felt like I was walking alone out there, even after my friend had to go home because of health reasons.
And I think that that's a very important key. And that and the fact that you learn, I think, pretty quickly when you're doing your trips and your treks, that you leave enough space and flexibility, even if you have, and sometimes it's happened, you have schedules because you got to meet them due to weather, and big challenges that will happen if you don't meet your deadlines, but to still
yeah.
have the flexibility to work around it. You've had that happen a couple of times where there are delays beyond what you expected, even starting or in the middle of a trek, right?
Oh yeah. So when we were in Tibet, we were worried about the snow starting because we were walking in October and November, and the snows could have hit at any time, and those trails would have been closed until springtime. We would have been stuck in some village. So it's worse than being stuck on Maui, believe me. There's only so much samba you can eat.
And it's very true, because you do get into situations in some countries where they're political situations and you have to negotiate your way through them. And I've been to Tibet and also in Lhasa, and also even in Kathmandu. And I think you learn as a peace pilgrim and a trekker as you are, is how to try to appeal to people who are challenging you, that usually it might be a government person or situations, in a kind of higher way, so that you don't push buttons or antagonize people, right?
Yeah, I think it's reaching a common ground. And more I realize that no matter the culture, no matter the religion, people are basically looking for the same things in their life. And if you can get down to that level, that most people are very generous.
I think that's very key. And I think that I think in all peace negotiations, that key you just expressed, that the commonality of human beings can overcome the differences and separations that we're sometimes trained with, or the judgments that are ingrained in us.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that's a great tool. It's a great tool to learn. You've learned many, many tools, and you developed quite a few people who are very grateful for you, and have read your books and have tried to follow some of the paths that you followed, haven't they?
Yeah, it's nice to hear from readers and people who say, yeah, I've read your book, and because of that, I'm doing this with my life, or I'm going on this trail and I want to experience this as well. And it's that's the most gratifying part for me of being a writer, is to be able to inspire people in my own small way.
Well, we're just about out of time, looking at my watch. We only have a minute or two. But I would like people to be able to reach out to you. And I know you have a website, but also, is there a way they actually can connect with you? What would you suggest is the best way? Your website, and if they wanted to follow a blog or anything else you did.
The best way to do it is they can go to my website, brandonwilsonauthor.com. Also on Facebook, and I can give you the address for that you could post.
Okay.
I have an author site on there, or they can probably find me under Brandon Wilson Author there.
And you are, and I didn't even mention this, you're a wonderful photographer as well. And I've been to your Facebook site and I sometimes go, wow, I love photographs where I go, that take you to that magic that it's captured by the person who's in a place you'd love to be. And I have to say, your photographs are a beautiful expression of that as well.
Oh, thanks, Cindy. It's nice to be able to include them. I include them in the books and on my website, as well as on the Facebook page. I try to have a regular series that I go into, and we just finished doing something on Chamonix, so there are a lot of photos from there as well.
Wonderful. Well, it's just a real treat. It's almost magic to be able to finally connect via Zoom and be able to talk to you and see you and get an idea of what you're up to in your beautiful place that you're living there. And it's just really a nice bridge to connect from here in Hawaii, which was your home, to where you are now, and just feel that energy of what you're about. And I thank you for taking the time. I really do. It's wonderful for you to make the time that we could actually connect here. We'll have to do it again sometime. So I just a big bow of peace and gratitude to you and for the work you're doing in all